And welcome back, everybody. So excited about the countdown for my trip to Casa de Campo in the Dominican Republic, the best golf resort in the Caribbean. I've been talking about it a lot. That's coming up in July. Gilles Gagnon joins us again. Gilles gives us the update on what's happening at Casa de Campo because I think, Gilles, haven't you been there longer than anybody, any human being? Is that right or what?
Yes, I have. Yeah, 44 years. Yeah, that's a matter of fact, a lot of the kids there look at me sometimes. They don't even know who I am. Some of the young kids that are working at front desk or area like this, but still, it's still great.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Hey, before we talk golf and Casa, and I was looking at the list, by the way, of celebs who've been at Casa. We're going to get into that. Got to ask you some hockey because you're an old hockey guy. And here we go again. The Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. Back-to-back years, they will meet in the Stanley Cup Finals. Last year, the Panthers got him in an exciting 7-game series. Are you excited about the repeat of the Stanley Cup Finals, Gilles?
Actually, I am. It was. I really thought Carolina was going to give it a little, a harder time because when they played Washington, it was like not even a game. They were just, Washington was outplayed, totally outplayed. And, Edmonton obviously got the best player in the world right now. And I think it's going to be exciting. And it's great because it's Canada, United States, which, as you know now, there's always a little friction. And I have a place in Florida that I go to every once in a while. So, and my daughter went to University of Miami. So I do have a little, I do have love for the Panthers, but also I'd like to see a Canadian team. I'm trying to think now, it's a while. I mean, the Montreal Canadiens have been horrible. They had a pretty decent team this year, but I think it's going to be really exciting. I think that's probably going to be another 7-game series.
It's going to be fun. The Panthers slight favorites if you're looking at the odds now from Vegas. You mentioned Connor McDavid, who is arguably the best player in the NHL right now, plays for Edmonton. Gilles, is he on the same level as the great one, who obviously played at Edmonton? Is he on that same level?
Well, that's a tough question. It's saying is, if Hogan and Nicholas and Tiger, that's different generation. I mean, obviously Gretzky was amazing. The guys now, when I played, somebody 5'9", 5'10" were pretty good sized guys. Now they're big. And I think the reason I think the Panthers is favorites because of their size. They're really physical. I mean, it's they play, every couple days, and they just, you see the hit and, and a long season, how many games they play. And so it's, I don't know. He's very good, but he's still got a way to go. Gretzky was amazing. I played a little bit during that time. And, you couldn't touch that guy. The deal with him is that everything around him, when I studied some of the stuff when I was at Michigan State, that everything around him were basically move in slow motion. So he could see things develop. He can see, that was the thing because he wasn't big. Gretzky's not big, but he was fast, but not super fast. But he could just, you could see the play around him and he could see people moving and it was a different speed. So that's why all the goals he scored. I know his record's been broken now, but, I think they probably played more games. And, every year. You look at golf now, when somebody drove it 295 yards, a big drive. Now it's 324.
Right.
My little grandson is 15 and he drives it about 290 or something. It's like, it doesn't make any sense, but everybody gets bigger except me. I get shorter.
Well, it is. You cannot compare eras. That's why people who try to compare Michael Jordan to LeBron James, you can't do it. They played completely different eras, decades apart, right? So,
I think Michael Jordan. LeBron, great, but Michael Jordan was. I think that's almost you can't. I agree with you. You can't really compare, but that I'll compare. I'll take Michael Jordan any day.
Hey, I wanted to ask you this, but as we wrap up the hockey segment,
yeah.
The fact that Edmonton did beat Dallas, and if Dallas had pulled the upset, and you'd have a Dallas Florida NHL final. Do hockey fans in Canada, would they still get excited about an all-USA franchise Stanley Cup? Or is it a good thing Edmonton has made it again?
Well, it's funny. My brother and sister-in-law, they watch hockey all the time, and they're really into it. And, when the Panthers were playing now, they're semifinal, they were not as interested. I think that's a really valid point. I think to have a Canadian team, an American team now, it's pretty much when they had the four nation, event there where they had Canada, United States. That was huge. I mean, that's one of the most interesting, games that I've seen in a long time. So I think, I think that's, I think it's in the NFL when you talk about if there's two teams from smaller market, it's not as big as when they have, whatever, New York or Dallas or, now Kansas City. So I think that's huge for the NHL. I think that was a big, a good move that was not organized or arranged, but I think that's really good for hockey.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm excited, and I'm a proud American who's just kind of a fringe hockey fan. But after watching last year's finals, and Sean McDonough has been on our show, the famous play-by-play guy on ABC who does it, and he does a phenomenal job, and he's excited about calling another final between Edmonton and Florida. So it should be good stuff. All right, Gilles, let's talk Casa de Campo. 50-year anniversary of this incredible resort that you've been a big part of. Everybody getting excited about getting through the summer and gearing up for a big celebration when you guys, I guess, cut the ribbon on Teeth of the Dog, the redo of Pete Dye's famous golf course, and also just celebrate what has been an incredible run for you guys, 5 decades.
Yeah, we've been celebrating some of the stuff, for the regular 50th anniversary. We had a huge concert. We had some tournaments on the golf course, and they had events and things like that. And obviously, I should have a hat that says 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
When I came here, it's been pretty incredible, and I've seen, Pete has done some reworked on the Teeth of the Dog. He did stuff on the links, our other golf course, obviously built Dive 4 and Laramada Country Club. But to be honest with you, I'm very excited about to see what this, look like. And I think it's, a lot of people say, why did you do it? And it's like, it really was needed. The grass and stuff, the fairways were thinner, because we didn't have, they were so compacted. And, we're adding 2 inches of sand now in the fairways and changing the greens, not in terms of the undulation or anything. They added a few tees that were there that were blown away during a hurricane, number 6. So I'm really excited to see the final product. But I'm going to tell you something. When you go out there and you drive around, it's kind of scary. I'm looking at this and I'm going, oh my God, there's, there's still a lot of work to be done. They're on time, but I've worked with Pete when we build golf courses there, and trust me, I'm not an expert on any of that stuff, but building a golf course is very different than remodeling it or renovating it. You know what I mean? Because you see the golf course and all of a sudden it's gone. Basically, and then you see these pile of sand everywhere and all the and so it's a little bit because you're looking and I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, now wait, that was there, now it's gone because they've already measured and everything else, but. Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I mean, I'm really excited to see what it's going to look like, and I think it's going to be. I have no doubt that it's going to be, good, and hopefully, it's matured enough. Obviously, it takes a little time after you reopen, so I think we're going to have to be careful how many players we put out there. But the tees that I've seen, a couple additions to make them a little further, for the better player. Not that I'll play from there, but. You will probably. I'll put you back there so we can beat you. But,
we'll see.
So anyway, yes, I'm very excited, and I think 50 years is, we're basically the first resort in the Dominican Republic. Pete built that golf course, was the first one. It was the beginning of everything. I mean, what he's created in terms of, job and what he's created, with hotels now, everywhere in the Dominican Dominican Republic is becoming a very good destination for golf. Not only Casa de Campo, but, the Dominican Republic in general.
It's interesting. As you explained last time we had you on, Teeth of the Dog especially was built on top of coral. And then you bring in the earth that is around from the sugarcane fields, et cetera. And over time, over 40, 50 years, it just hardens. And so a change had to be made. You had to dig it up, put in more sand. New grasses obviously have come a long way over the last 40 or 50 years, and Jerry Pate and his company are doing that. And that'll reopen Teeth of the Dog middle of December, first of the year, Gilles. But the other golf courses are going strong and in good shape, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we made a point to even increase a little bit, the budget and the maintenance on the links. Like we've talked about it before. The links is such an underrated golf course. It's such a good golf course. And yeah, and I played, when I played down there, we played out of my country club, play dive four, play links. And, it's really amazing with the amount of play, how good the golf courses are. I mean, the greens are fantastic. I mean, good speed. We don't get speed down there like 13 or 14. This is a resort course. You want people to enjoy it, and also the time it takes. You go to private club, and everybody's proud to have a green at 13. Well, the average player at 13 is going to take 5 putts. I mean, you got a 3-footer, you hit it, spins, it goes back another 10. So, we're running about 10, 9.5, 10. Very playable, but it's, down grain, downhill, it's still very fast. But yeah, they're in good shape. That's something we're very proud of. I mean, I remember 44 years ago, you'd play a few golf courses in the Caribbean and they were in horrible shape. They didn't have the budget, they didn't have the traffic. So it was not something that was very important. But then when the teeth of the dog opened, then everybody starts looking, for me to try to get, let's say, a merchandise, a salesman to come and try to sell me shirts or something. Nobody came. And eventually you got one person that came down out of Atlanta there, Mr. Brown. I can't remember his first name, but he came down and then all of a sudden people were starting to say, hey, listen, Teeth of the Dog's being successful. You were on Sports Illustrated and they did, Golf Digest. Now they start building golf course and all of a sudden they start comparing the quality, like Puerto Rico, for example. They had golf courses there, but, at the time. But now everybody say, hey, we got to make sure the golf courses are in good condition because, the rates obviously are higher and the people are demanding. Golf, you go play all over the place. Now, very rarely do you find a golf course that's in, might not be the best condition, but it was, like I said yesterday with my little grandson, we were in Columbus, Nebraska playing in the state championship. I want to tell you, that little golf course there was actually pretty darn good and in good shape. And it's in the middle of, it's, I don't know, an hour and a half from Omaha. And so, even in these places like Nebraska and, now they're building golf course all over the place. And most of them know that if they're not in good condition, the people are going to talk about it. It's going to really hurt their reputation.
Gilles, you mentioned the speed of the greens. You get to 13 or 14 and you throw Teeth of the Dog with the wind blowing off the ocean. My goodness. You couldn't play with that kind of speed and the wind whipping across. That'd be impossible. I mean, that's why you got to keep those greens a little slower.
The LAC, I think we had it at about 11. I think that's what they want him at 11, 11 and a half. Latin America, where the winner goes to Augusta. And that's about what we had him at 11, 11 and a half. And the other thing, it's warm in the Dominican Republic, all the time. So, we have plenty of water down there. We're very fortunate. But if you get that 90 degrees in the summer, 95 or whatever, and the wind blowing and it dries up pretty fast. And so, yeah, you got to keep them a little moist and you got to keep it going a little bit.
All right, Gilles. Again, Casa de Campo, La Romana, Dominican Republic. I'm going to fly directly American Airlines Miami to La Romana Airport. Easy breezy. And the last time you were on, you mentioned Sean Connery, who came down and played at Casa de Campo, loved it, and you spent some time with him. You mentioned U.S. presidents. I've been doing some research here, Gilles. My goodness. I mean, this list of stars that have come down, Rihanna, Alicia Keys, Jay-Z, Mark Anthony, you mentioned Bill Clinton, Rudy Giuliani, Beyonce, Justin Bieber. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. Gilles, you need to tell me more about all these stars that you rub elbows with down at Casa de Campo.
Well, you talk about Sean, the announcer there, and he came down. He was a great guy too. He came during the during the LAC, and what a wonderful guy he is. And it was a lot of fun to be around here. But yeah, played with Sean Connery, and probably I'll tell you a quick little story there. And again, you get to be my age sometime in name, but one of the great opera singer, one of the fourth tenor, and he was with Oscar de la Renta, and he's never played golf, and he wanted to play golf, so. Domingo Placido, that was his name. So we get out there, and so I get 5 caddies on one side of the fairways, 5 caddies on the other side of the fairway. I give them golf balls, And I said, look, no matter where the ball goes off that tee, whoever the caddy is the closest, you take the ball, you go back right in the middle of the fairway and you tee it up for him. So we played 9 holes, and I remember Oscar de la Renta and him said this is the best time they've ever had playing golf. Well, they never went anywhere. It was right back in the fairway. We played, and he couldn't wait to play the next day. So that's one of the story with Placido Domingo. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and funny enough, I think a lot of these people that I was with or that were at Casa de Campo, they feel comfortable because it's not like we're not try to be too aggressive or too be over them all the time and worried about them. They want a little space. Michael Jordan came down there for his bachelor's party with a bunch of guys, and it rained one day, so I had him on the 19th hole on the tee to the dog, and and we have this. You're right over looking at the 9th hole, and it was raining, and he was kind of a little upset. So I said, "Well, what about we have a closest to the pin on number 9?" So I got a bucket of balls, and they were sitting on the balcony, and the green is down below, and it's pouring rain, and they're throwing golf balls to see who's going to closest to the pin. I'm not going to tell you what they were betting, but let me tell you something. It was over my pay scale, I can tell you that. And they were throwing golf balls and they had the best time. I mean, they had, it rained for an hour and a half, and then, they went back and play. But yeah, we've done some fun things, and most of them, I have to say, have been just wonderful, and they thank you, and it's been something, an experience, but being down there 44 years and thinking how lucky I've been, to be down there meeting these people, but business people, obviously, some very, the owner of Casa de Campo, for example, Mr. Van Hoel. You talk about a brilliant guy. He's came out of Cuba and developed, created this business and continued, and his brothers and sisters. I mean, they're just pretty amazing. The people you see, how smart some of these people are and how dedicated but very helpful. They do a lot of stuff. They've built some orphanage down there in the Dominican and give a lot of money to support. We have 2 great foundations there, Mir and Hogar del Niño, and both of them do some fantastic work. And they're both from part of the ownership of Casa de Campo. So yeah, you know what? It's maybe they were happy to meet me too. I don't know.
Oh, I think they were. And Mr. Van Hoel, obviously he hired you, Gilles. So, that was a major move on his part, 40 some odd years ago.
Yeah, a golf pro. He said, I hired a left-handed hockey player out of Canada. and I was used to help him out on the range a little bit once in a while. And he'd look at me and said, Jesus, it'd be like a Cuban guy tried to teach you how to play hockey or something. He's a wonderful man. He's a wonderful man.
Well, it's worked out incredibly well for you and everybody at Casa de Campo. And I encourage people, too, as you tell those stories about some of these famous people who have come down. And Miguel Angel Jimenez, great golf champion, was on the show last week. He has a place down there. I think that's the key, Gilles. People, they want to go to a unique, beautiful location that is out of the way, and they just want to relax, or as young people say now, chillax for a few days without being bothered, right?
Yeah, I think so. I tell you, you name some of the people that, have been down there. I never saw them. I never saw them. As a matter of fact, I think Brett Baer was down there one time after COVID. He's a big golfer, and he was down there, and I didn't even know. But, I think he wanted to be, just kind of alone because, these people, everybody wants to be around. And but, it's one of those, I think you're right. You get down there, you chill out. Miguel goes hit balls, all these people play, and a few people will follow them. They might take a few pictures. When Robert Redford, walked in the pro shop, I remember that. Everybody's looking, and it was very nice and friendly, and so. So now we got another, got one more down that's coming very soon in July. A very famous guy that I think does one of a great interviewer. I have to say, I listened to Miguel's interview that you did with him, and I have to, and most of the one you do, and I have to say, not because you're taking me on, I'm on your show now more than I think anybody else.
You're on the payroll.
I'm on the payroll. I haven't seen the check yet, but it's okay. But yeah, you do a great job, and I'm really looking forward to having you down there. I'm definitely it's on my schedule, and I'll fly down there for sure, so we can I could show you what Casa de Campo is all about.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. And, you know, it is interesting the more we talk, and we are just having a conversation, and you just casually roll out Sean Connery. And oh, by the way, Robert Redford was in the pro shop. And I was like, Gilles, this is pretty amazing stuff. You need to keep talking because you're going to keep throwing out all these names. You know?
Do you write books? Do you write books? You ever written any books?
We may have to write a book. Yes.
Well, you know, I've had a couple people ask me that. I mean, and not because, but you know, anybody that had been there would have a story, obviously. But
right.
These stories are still interested, and I think one of the things that we miss definitely at Casa de Campo is to have a little more time with Pete Dye. You know, I spent a lot of time with Pete Dye, and obviously one of the greatest golf architect ever. And the time we had together, some of the story that he told me about, you know, how he built these golf courses or other places when he were at, where they said that he was the only person that overspent an unlimited budget, things like that. So, and we missed that a little bit. You know, I don't think we were as keen as we are now with Jason, for example. Jason is very much part of it. You know, he wants the history of Casa de Campo to continue on. That's why we did the 50th anniversary. And get some of the old pictures and things like that. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You know, when he's gone now, and there was a guy the other day wanted a paper from the Dominican Republic, wanted to take a look at what we were doing. So I drove him down to the Teeth of the Dog on 8 because it's kind of difficult now because the paths are being made. And so we went down there, and he wanted to know about Pete Dye. He said, "Oh, I heard that Pete Dye, is here somewhere." I said, "Yes." I said, so I showed a plaque, and I said, "Yeah, he's here somewhere." I said, "You're not going to tell me?" I said, "No, I'm not going to tell you." But I said, "His ashes are here. That's where you wanted to be." But I said, "If you look around, that's probably the place that's the greenest on the whole place." I said, "The grass is the greenest by far because we're not about to let that go, not looking good." So, I think history, I think we miss a lot of that in, whatever, Arnold Palmer, all these famous golfers, they have to sit around and tell stories. I think I've always enjoyed that. When I played hockey, I would sit around with the old coaches and listen to them about different things. I mean, sadly enough, I don't think we don't learn much from history, do we? What we're doing and a lot of things now, we should be a little more conscious of what, some old folks, we do have a little experience. We're not the smartest. I had my grandson did. Yesterday I was trying to save a number on my phone, my iPhone, and I said, "Come here, can you help me out?" He says, "Yeah, Papa. Look, you just punch here and there." And I go, "Oh my God!" I tried for an hour and a half. He did it in like 2 seconds. So that I will give him that. But some of the experience and history, I think we should be very careful not forgetting that.
It is interesting, and I might have told you this, the very first time, it might have been at Crooked Stick, where I interviewed Pete Dye for the first time, and he was out early walking his dog on the property, as you know, a very unique person, and he had this Teeth of the Dog golf hat on, and I remember, and it was kind of an old perspiration hat that obviously he wore all the time, and I remember asking him, this was many, many years ago, Gilles. It's like, what is this Teeth of the Dog? And oh my goodness, he was talking about his favorite property in the Dominican Republic, and it was good stuff. So he loved wearing that hat, didn't he?
He loved it. And, he had that hat. And, in the old days, now they have some of them that are totally fitted in the back, right?
Yes.
Well, he was kind of like, we had a little kind of a clean spot back there. So he used to have the lady in the Dominican Republic sew a little piece of material right there below he would sew a little piece of material so he wouldn't get burned, on the back of his head. But he loved it. And, Herb Kohler, Mr. Kohler, God, Herb used to get so mad, and he'd say, "I'm paying you all this money." And he said, "They don't pay you anything, and you wear that damn Teeth of the Dog hat everywhere." And that house he had on number 7, that was, he loved it, and it was just awful. It was thatch roof, and it was at one point he had some termite in the roof, and you could be sitting at the house. You had a glass, you had to put the thing, but he absolutely loved this place, and he was right on the Teeth of the Dog on number 7, the par 3. And, there's a few people that would hit a little shank, So he had a dining room outside, but it was just a roof. And he finally put a net there in case, because people would shank it. So he put a net there, and he would take all the golf balls and he put them in a basket, and he put them right next to the cart path, and he'd say, Don't worry about yours. Just pick one or two of those, so people wouldn't keep walking up to the, he didn't care, but walking up to the property. But it was really a beautiful house, but, it was a little rustic to say. The doors were all wood, dry, piece of wood that he had put together, some branches and stuff. And he had a TV that he had actually a box, a cardboard box that he had it in or something. I mean, Pete he wore khaki pants and a white or yellow shirt and a teeth of the dog hat. And we would go to town and he would get these pants made down there. And every time he'd say, okay, give me 6 of those. And he'd say, the guy would do 6. He'd say, that'll take me to the box. Well, probably did about 150 pair before we really did take them to the box. But that was his story. Alice used to get so mad at him. But, it was a great partnership. A lot of the stuff, all the tees, the forward tees at Casa, that's all Alice Dye. She just put them there and kept saying, I want the ladies to enjoy it. They're not driving it 225, 250 yards. Let's make them. And funny enough, most of the time people will leave Casa de Campo and they'll say, the ladies will say, that's the best round I've ever had. Well, they're not driving, driver 3-wood wedge. You know what I mean? You could drive and they'll hit an iron similar. If we're playing from the same distance, we'll play kind of similar irons to the green. So that's the genius of Alice.
Good stuff. Pete Dye, of course, for our listeners and viewers, World Golf Hall of Famer, one of the preeminent golf course architects of his time. And his courses have withstood the test of time. And obviously, Teeth of the Dog lives on. And it's going to be awesome when it reopens right around the middle of December. But in the meantime, you got the links, you got the Dive 4, La Romana Country Club. A lot of good golf down at Casa de Campo. And Gilles, you're the guy. I always tell people, go to the website, casadecampo.com. There's a phone number there, too. But they can email you and get a hold of you or people on your staff, right? If they want to set up a golf trip.
Yeah, you could do that. Like I said, part of the Casa de Campo, our success is that we've customized things. So,
Right.
If you got 4 guys, 8 guys, it's not like you push a button somewhere, you reach out to me, at Gilles Gagnon, that Casa de Campo. .com.do, you send us, or some of the staff you see, or you call the pro shop, the golf office, and they forward it to me, or Kelly Sheehan that works for us, and and then we'll send them proposal, and we always assign somebody to the group. They always have a coordinator that's with them. I don't care if it's 4, 8. Because when we, you get some of these resorts, sometimes you go there and you get lost a little bit, these big places.
Right.
So this casa is huge. So we want to make sure that, you're well taken care of. Your dinner reservation is made and stuff like that. I'm sure yours are already made. They probably have your tea time. And we make sure there's no bed bugs in your room or anything like that.
Well, Gilles, I'm a procrastinator and not the best organizer, so I haven't done that yet, but I will be doing it here soon. That's for sure.
Well, you got my email address. Send it to me. I'll get it organized. I'll make sure that your wife's happy, your daughter, and I want to make sure that I'm invited back on your show. But you
absolutely.
do really, I tell you what, I mean it very. You do an amazing job. I love listening to your, to the interviews you do, and you and Sean Connery. Sean McDonough. Sean McDonough is awesome. We were together in Argentina for the first lac, and I just love the guy. And his voice is amazing. He describes everything so well. I mean, football, hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, he's amazing. So
very underrated. And that's interesting for a guy who's done it all on the network level. But now when you talk about great announcers, people forget how great he is. And of course, he's a friend of mine, so I always like to throw that out there.
Well, I'll give him my best when you see him. He'll remember when the dancers in Argentina, they had their big final dinner for the LAC, and they had some dancers, and I don't remember what the dance is there. And Sean and I are in the corner under a couch somewhere. We don't want to be picked up to go dance anywhere. And we're looking at each other. And Andy North was there, and he's going and he's pointing. Here's these 2 guys. They're right over there. Go get them. So you might remind him of that. But
good stuff.
Great story.
That's good stuff. Hey, Gilles, we appreciate it. Have fun with the family. I know you're enjoying the U.S. tour. I always call it the U.S. tour because you have kids everywhere and grandkids, so you're flying all around. I look forward to seeing you in July, but we will talk again in a couple of weeks, okay?
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gilles.
Take care.